Good day, everyone. This is Group 4, here to present the 1987 Constitution, as well as the tax system and the Philippine development. There are a few key principles that shaped the 1987 Philippine Constitution, and one is the sovereignty of the people. In Article 2, Section 1 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution, it states that the Philippines is a democratic and republican state, sovereignty resides in the people, and all government authority emanates from them. This means that the ultimate power comes from the citizens, and leaders only govern because the people allow them to through elections. This principle makes sure that the government is held accountable to its citizens and cannot operate without the consent of the people. So, another principle is the separation of powers. The Constitution separates government into three equal co branches, which is the legislative, which is in control of the laws or which makes the laws and is overseen by the Congress and Senate, the executive, which enforces these laws and is headed by the president, and the judicial, which interprets laws and is overseen by the Supreme Court and lower courts. This system ensures that no single branch becomes too powerful and that each one remains accountable and can hold each other accountable. So, the Constitution also protects the freedoms of individuals through the Bill of Rights, which is found in Article 3 of the Constitution. This serves to protect the rights of every Filipino. It guarantees the rights to life, liberty, and property, the right to freedom of speech and expression, and the right to due process and equal protection of the laws. These rights serve as a protection for individuals against abuses of power by the government and protects all the rights of the Filipino people. When it comes to social justice and human rights, it is stated in Article 2, Section 10. The Constitution states that the state shall promote social justice in all phases of national development. This means that the government should not only serve the majority, but also protect the poor, the vulnerable, and the marginalized. Lastly, the Constitution also makes another principle very clear, which is civilian authority must always be supreme. So in Article 2, Section 3, the Constitution states that civilian authority is at all times supreme over military. This ensures that the military serves only to defend the state and remains under the leadership of elected officials. This principle was made very clear after the martial law period, when military influence over politics was very strong, and so by making civilian authority supreme, the Constitution prevents military control and guarantees that democracy remains in the hands of the people. With these five features, they became essential pillars of the 1987 Constitution, which protects our rights and ensures that our democracy is preserved.
Next we have is the historical context of the 1987 Constitution. So the 1987 Constitution was a direct result of the EDSA People Power Revolution, which is a series of non-violent protests that ended the reign of President Ferdinand Marcos. So after years of the authoritarian rule under the 1973 Constitution, the Filipino people demanded a new charter that would safeguard their rights and prevent the reemergence of a dictatorship. So then, President Corazon Aquino issued Proclamation Number 3, which established a provisional freedom constitution and called for a creation of a new constitution that would reflect the ideals and aspirations of the Filipino people.
Next is the structures of the government, and the structures around three co-equal branches in order to balance power in our government. First is the Legislative Department, led by the Congress, and they are the branch who enacts the laws, composed of the Senate and the House of Representatives. Second is the Executive Branch, led by the President, and they are a branch of law enforcers. They also implement and execute laws, and they are responsible for implementing policies and running the government. And then third is the Judicial Department, led by the Supreme Court and the lower courts. They interpret and declare any treaty, executive agreement, laws, and more. And next is the Independent Constitutional Commissions. We have the Civil Service Commission, Commission on Elections, and Commission on Audit. These three operate to manage the government, bureaucracy, elections, and funds together in order to balance the system in each department.
Hello, my name is Benjamin Acker from CSAM 5, here for our group presentation on the 1987 Constitution, and I will be reporting structures of government in terms of constitutional commissions and other constitutional bodies. So to start, I will first be discussing the Civil Service Commission, otherwise known as the CSC. It manages the government workforce and oversees integrity and professionalism. So they make sure that all the government workers are qualified and honest and capable. They manage this and they make sure everyone is treated fairly. They do hiring through exams and also create rules for government employees so that there is no who's higher than the other person. It's all equal. And for the next one, it's the Commission on Elections, the COMELEC. They are responsible for overseeing the electoral processes here in the Philippines. So if there's an election, or if and within that election there's counting ballots, overseeing voting, registering voters, it all happens within this commission. They oversee the electoral processes, who are involved, the voting, and up until election of the actual candidate. Next is the Commission on Audit, otherwise known as COA. So audits all accounts and government funds. So the COA is responsible for auditing the funds that are being used within the government to make sure that it is going to the right projects, to the right funding, and it is not going to anything illegal or anything that is not discussed within the budgetary plans. So they are making sure that everything is handled correctly and that the money is going to the rightful places on where it is supposed to go. So next, we will be discussing about the Office of the Ombudsman. Well, this Office of the Ombudsman is an independent office in the Philippines that makes sure government officials do their best, do their jobs honestly. So they are a watchdog for the government, and they make sure that the government upholds integrity upon doing their jobs. So its main role is to fight corruption, wrongdoings in the government, and it listens to complaints from people, investigates officials who may be guilty of misconduct, and can be punished. Then they can enact punishment by suspending or removing these government individuals from the office. So next we have the Commission on Human Rights. The commission is an independent agency in the Philippines that works to protect and promote people's human rights. So this is the commission wherein if ever the individual has experienced a human rights violation, they can go to this office and dictate their complaints. And then this office will take into account the complaint, and then they will investigate, they will resolve, and their job is just to essentially receive any news about human rights violations from individuals, and then they will help you solve the issue of to the highest extent of the law. Lastly, we will be discussing about local government units. So is a political and administrative division. And they enact local legislation, manage its own finances, and respond to community needs independently of the national government. So, with this in mind, the LGU or local government units, they are the smaller branches of governments that you can find within each community or barangay or city. And they are responsible for anything that happens within their area, within their area of responsibility. So if I were to live in Barangay Batasan Hills, the LGU in Batasan Hills would be only responsible for within anything that happens within Batasan Hills. And they work like a smaller form of government, but if ever they need to hold cases which need higher government, they will bring it up to national level already. So thank you. Here are my sources, and thank you for listening to my part.
Next is the ratification. The final draft of the 1987 Constitution was completed on October 12, 1986. It was then presented to the people in the nationwide plebiscite on February 2, 1987. A large majority, about 76% of voters, approved it. This officially made the 1987 Constitution the highest law of the land and marked the Philippines' return to democracy.
Good day, everyone. So, on towards our next topic, the tax system and the Philippine development. So, before we move forward, let us first define what is taxation. So, to begin with, let's understand what taxation is. We can think of it as the life force of the government. As of course, it is the core. Taxation is the process by which the government collects money to fund everything from, let's say, for example, building roads and bridges to paying for our schools and hospitals. And it's all compulsory contribution from all of us, designed to be proportionate to what we can afford to pay so that we can all benefit from the service it provides. Now, moving on, let's move forward to the historical evolutions. There are three historical evolutions towards taxation, which is of course first the pre-colonial era. Before the Spanish arrived, the Philippines had a very different system. It wasn't a formal tax system, but rather a practice of communal contribution called handog or alay. To simply put it, this was a voluntary offering that Filipinos gave to their local chieftain or datu. We call chieftain or datu as the head leader before. So we do this in exchange for his protection and leadership. It was a simple reciprocal system based on community and trust, not on legal enforcement like in today's world. Now, moving forward to our next era, which is the Spanish era. The Spanish conquest brought a major change, which introduced us a centralized and compulsory tax system. The most well-known tax was the tributo, which was a tribute that Filipinos had to pay to the Spanish government. They also implemented the cedula, as we can see here in the example, which was a community tax certificate that served as a form of identification and proof of payment before. This was a system designed to exert control and extract resources for the colonial government. Now, moving on to the last one, which is the modern era or today's world. To shift to a more modern tax system begins during the American period with the establishment of the Bureau of Internal Revenue, which or the BIR, in the early 1904. This was the key step in creating a formal, organized system for collecting taxes. So fast forwarding to today's world or today's time, our tax system is guided by the 1987 Philippine Constitution, which promotes a progressive tax system. This means that those who earn more should contribute to a higher percentage. So the higher you're paid, the higher you should need to contribute for their income in taxes. It also aimed at creating more fair and equitable society. So before we move forward that to our discussion that would be discussed by my group member, I would like to acknowledge where I got my infos, which were Santiago and the other authors. This is a reference list, so you could look for other additional infos using this. Another one is the Philippine Institute for Development Studies. Thank you.
The current Philippine tax system. The Philippine tax system consists of two levels, the national and local. The difference between the two is that the revenue from national taxes is used to fund national government projects, services, and operations, such as infrastructure development, national defense, and social services, while the revenue of local taxes funds the local government projects and services, such as local infrastructure, public health programs, and local peace and order initiatives. There are two main types of taxes. The first one is the direct taxes. Direct taxes are paid directly to the government by a person, and the burden of that tax cannot be passed on to another person. Direct taxes are progressive, which means the tax rate increases as the income of the taxpayer increases. Indirect taxes are charged on goods and services. It is collected by a retailer or a manufacturer, and then the burden of the tax is shifted to the final consumer. The administrator of the national tax system is handled by two government agencies. The first is BIR, or the Bureau of Internal Revenue. They are the main tax collecting agency. The BIR focuses on all taxable transactions that happens within the country. The second one is the BOC, or the Bureau of Customs. BOC is focused on controlling the goods that enter or leave the country to prevent smuggling.
Good day, everyone. My name is Michael Angelo Dolorosa, and I'll be presenting impacts of taxation on Philippine development. So, for the economic impact, so taxes are the backbone of the Philippine government, accounting for about 90% of its revenue. This vital income allows the government to fund key areas like infrastructure, public education, healthcare, and social welfare programs, ensuring the country can continue to grow and provide essential services to its citizens. On the social impact of taxation, taxes also play a crucial role in addressing social inequalities. With a progressive tax system, higher income earners contribute more, helping reduce the income gap. The revenue from the taxes goes into programs that fight poverty, improve public health, and provide free or subsidized education for those in need. One example is the sin taxes, which target products like alcohol, tobacco, and sugary drinks. These taxes not only reduce harmful consumption but also generate funds for healthcare initiatives like the Universal Healthcare Program, which ensures that even the poorest Filipinos have access to healthcare. For slide 3, challenges in the Philippine tax system. So, however, despite its importance, the Philippine tax system faces several challenges. One major issue is evasion and avoidance, which result in the loss of about 500 billion pesos every year, according to AMLC 2023. The Bureau of Internal Revenue has launched initiatives like the Run After Tax Evaders program to tackle this, but the complexity of the system and a lack of public trust in government spending continue to make the problem worse. Another challenge is the regressive nature of indirect taxes like VAT, which hit lower income households the hardest. And lastly, the corruption and mismanagement of tax revenues further undermine public confidence in the system. So, To support the key points in this presentation, the following references have been used: Anti-Money Laundering Council 2023, Grant Thornton, Philippines 2024, Latest Summer Daily News 2024, September 30, and Reside and R.E. Jr. 2017.